What is good, YouTube? Warstu here with a video on the Captain Marvel movie. So by the time I've uploaded this video, the movie will be out globally, as I'm not going to upload this video till Friday the 8th of March, which is when the movie's coming out, which is funny enough International Women's Day as well. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, guys, to never miss any Marvel, DC, and pop culture based content that we cover. So we are giving away a Hasbro Infinity Gauntlet at the end of this month, being March. All you gotta do is let me know down below who is your favorite superhero or supervillain, and or if you actually enjoyed Captain Marvel, and also subscribe to the channel. So Captain Marvel movie is now officially out, so we can talk major spoilers, which is pretty cool. So let's get into the video. So first off, before I get in the video, let me know down below, did you enjoy this movie? Did you not enjoy it? And also, what would you give it out of 10? This movie has a very different scoring for literally everyone. You can go from the extreme to loving it to hating it. So now we can talk spoilers. So there are a lot of Easter eggs in this movie, if you'd even call them Easter eggs. I'd say the biggest one would be Stan Lee, as there was a massive homage, tribute to Stan Lee and Marvel Comics at the start of the movie. And I'd have to say Stan Lee's cameo role in this movie was one of the best moments that he's had. And Kevin Feige has also confirmed that he will be in Spider-Man Far From Home and also Avengers EndGame. So his cameo role in this movie happened in the fight scene where Brie Larson, aka Captain Marvel, was chasing down the Skrull, and it was a train scene. It was pretty awesome. So this movie has a massive feel, because one thing you have to understand is you cannot compare this movie to Infinity War, because this is a punch in your face origin story, but it's not a generic boring one like Iron Man or Captain America. I mean, yeah, they're not boring, but they are pretty generic. This is a very different origin to anything that we've had before, but it's technically similar to the Thor first movie and to Captain America Winter Soldier. Why? Because obviously Captain America got the super serum. Although he had the strongest heart and will before it, it's essentially the super serum that made him the soldier he is, exactly like Captain Marvel. Without the accident happening that actually gave her Goku level 1000, 9000 insane Super Saiyan powers, she was pretty normal. She was pretty average before that accident. So there are similarities to these two. But Captain Marvel as a character, she's more like Thor in the early days, where he punch you in the face pretty fast without talking. So it is interesting, because obviously when we do get to Avengers EndGame, it's going to be honestly like nearly 30 years later. So it will be a very different version of Captain Marvel that we see in EndGame to the one that we actually did see at the start of the movie. So essentially the big twist of this movie is that it's kind of disappointing in a way, because there isn't really an overall villain, if you get what I mean. There's a twist. You think the Kree and Skrulls aren't who they think they are. So essentially the Skrulls aren't the villain. The Kree are technically the villain, and they've manipulated Carol Danvers because of the powers she gained in the movie. So they were trying to control her powers essentially, and the Skrulls were just looking for a new home, but at the same time they could easily set up the secret invasion if they wanted to do that. Now I guess Easter eggs, I don't really like that word, but Ronan the Accuser is in this movie, played by Lee Pace. He doesn't really make much of an appearance, to be honest. He's essentially an elite Kree squad collector, essentially, and it's a spy from Skrull territory. He was in essentially the main villain for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, which happened around Xandar and the Nova Corps, but essentially he's not really in this movie that much. So that was a bit disappointing for me. But what is interesting is Ben Mendelsohn's character, Talos, was one of the overall surprises, even when he was playing Nick Fury's boss and when he was playing a Skrull. Very interesting. One of the standouts from this movie. It must have been awesome for him to play this role. It's such a cool twist that the Skrulls weren't really that bad at all. So Nick Fury, we get a very different variation of Nick Fury in this movie, because obviously in all the other Avengers movies and all the other times we've seen him, he's been this angry, kind of full-on, I'll punch you in the face kind of, last time I lost someone, last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye kind of person. But the variation we get of him in this movie is very different. But you got to understand, he is a 70-year-old man in real life, and they've de-aged him to make him look maybe 20, 35. No, maybe not 20, but like 25 to 35. So very interesting how we get a young version of Nick Fury before he knew anything about craziness. So the famous line, last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. For me, this is one of the most disappointing scenes in the whole of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So there's a character called Goose the Cat, who is essentially one of the stars, because that scene, the scenes with Goose the Cat is amazing. So essentially, Goose the Cat is a Flirt King who can essentially open dimensions with his mouth and suck things into it, etc. But how Nick Fury lost his eye is essentially Goose the Cat literally scraped his eye, like clawed him. That is why I don't actually trust cats. No, guys, this is a true story about Warstu. I don't trust cats in real life. I think all cats are evil. But yeah, he literally just clawed Nick Fury's eye, and then he lost his eye. So that was a very disappointing bit of the movie for me, at least. But Goose the Cat did swallow the Cosmic Cube, aka the Tesseract, and then in the post-credits scene, he did swallow it out. So there's a bit of confusion, and it's a bit misleading when the Tesseract first appeared, because obviously, as we learned in the Winter Soldier movie, which was set in 1945, that Howard Stark found the Tesseract, and it's all linked to Project Pegasus inside the sea. If I don't get a strike, I'll play the clip somewhere in this video. But yeah, and obviously Captain Marvel's set in the 90s, Winter Soldier set in 1945. So I've spoke to a bunch of people, and no one can really definitively come with an answer of how did the Cosmic Cube get to Marvel. Because essentially, the Cosmic Cube is essentially where Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel's powers come from. But in the scene where we first see the Tesseract, how did it get there? Because this is set in the 90s, we see it in 1945 in the Winter Soldier, and it's like there needs to be some kind of explanation, but maybe we'll get the explanation like 10 years later, like we did last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye. Someone, not something. I mean, obviously it's a cat, but that's pretty funny. So if you do know where the Tesseract actually originated from, I would love to know, because it's a bit kind of confusing because the accident technically happened before the 90s. Then the Tesseract went missing. So it's a bit really missing where the hell the Tesseract came from. Because obviously it went missing. Obviously, did it fall in the ocean from when Goose the Cat had it? Very, very misleading. And I can see why most reviewers won't even mention this, because it's not really that important. So Jude Law's character, Yon-Rogg, this was kind of disappointing for me, because essentially you knew he was the villain, and he just kept saying, I just want to make you the best version of yourself. He didn't really have many lines. He did a good job, but he didn't really have many lines at all. And obviously, Project Pegasus was a SHIELD program for studying the power of the Tesseract. Captain Marvel essentially shows us where this come from. When Project Pegasus was ran by Dr. Wendy Lawson, who is essentially essentially is Marvel and Annette Bening's character, who technically played a bunch of other character, who was also an Air Force test pilot, using Carol Danvers and her team to test out the new powers for the faster than speed steaming from the power of the Tesseract. In the comics, Project Pegasus is a base, and the acronym stands for Potential Energy Group Alternative Source, United States. But it was also used as a prison for those with superpowers. So it's very interesting. So obviously the big reveal is, yes, Annette Bening did play Mar-Vell, and she also played technically the Supreme Intelligence, because essentially the way it was explained in the movie was you would see whoever you wanted to see when you were talking to the Supreme Intelligence. Although we didn't get the comic book accurate kind of alien, like headless, head looking thing, that would have been a lot better. But obviously I understand this movie is a pretty low budget movie, only $150 million. So it is essentially pretty That's pretty low for a movie. So there has been a bunch of comments, and I kind of agree with them, with some of these CGI scenes being a bit off. But the directors of this movie, they're usually doing indie movies. So this was the first movie where they had a bigger budget to play with and all that kind of stuff. So the most interesting thing for me about this movie is what is going on with the tesseract. I know I've bring this up for multiple times, but the tesseract is aka the Space Stone, and it was the first Infinity Stone that appeared in the MCU, and it first appeared at the end of Thor in Captain Marvel's 1995. The tesseract was in the hands of S.H.I.E.L.D., having been dug up from this ice by Howard Stark, handed over by the secret organization. Project Pegasus was an incentive under S.H.I.E.L.D. to specifically study the power of the tesseract. So it seems that Dr. Lawson was trying to figure out how to apply it to space flight, but it's still not really clear essentially where the stone really come from. I would love to know if anyone could actually tell me down below where the stone actually came from, because it's still like pretty unclear. So there's a planet called Torfu in this movie, which a bunch of Skrull are hiding out during the Kree-Skrull War that takes place during the Captain Marvel. Not much happens there in the movie, but Torfu is important in the comic. As it turns out, Torfu is a planet with a highly toxic atmosphere caused by vibranium. Since we learn in Black Panther that vibranium in Wakanda is the result of a meta crash landing there, Torfu might just be from where it originated from, maybe. But like I said, I briefly go over a few Easter eggs. I'm not really one of these Easter egg channels. And obviously, the important part of this movie is the Fury pager scene. Because obviously, Carol Danvers gave him the pager. But unless you watch this movie, you won't truly understand where the pager scene came from. So essentially, she handed him the pager. And that's the same pager that we see in the post-credit scene. And she tells him to use it only for emergency. Only for something crazy, and she does explain that it would work through multiple galaxies, which is interesting because Fury gets this in the 90s and he doesn't use it to 2018, so it's pretty interesting how long he actually takes to use it. So essentially, for me, it is a pretty good movie. A pretty good origin movie. It flashes back and forward. There's a lot of amnesia. There's a lot of music and history from the 90s. You see such things as the Game Boy and I guess a load of Terminator, I'll Be Back kind of, I guess you could say, references, so to speak. But there is a lot. There's too many references. Obviously, blockbusters were big for renting movies, but most of them have actually gone bust now. I think the most disappointing thing about this movie for me is the ending scene where Jon Rogg, who is Jude Law's character, essentially he says, "Come on, let's fight, let's fight." And then essentially Captain Marvel just shoots him with a photon blast, which is pretty cool. It had a quirky tone to it. But I understand, I do read I do read the comment section. I have listened to some other reviewers and read some of the RT reviews. I do understand where they're coming from, but I would like to see a lot more of Star Force. Because, yeah, some of the Star Force people got a lot of press, but realistically, we didn't really see any of them. There were a few scenes that are on and off, but like I said, I don't normally give numbers out. But if I was to give a number, I'd give between 6.5 and 7, somewhere around there. See, it's not a great movie. It's not a bad movie. It's an average movie, but you shouldn't really compare it to Avengers 1, 2, 3. Because that's not really, it doesn't really make any sense if you compare it. I mean, I'd say it's better than Iron Man 1 and better than Civil War, but like I say, I'm not really a big fan of them two movies, so my opinion is just what it is. But the biggest issue that they're going to have in Avengers EndGame is, yes, there was a teaser scene at the end, kind of, where Captain America is looking hella skinny. He's looking like he's lost about 3 or 4 inches on his arms. Yes, Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, does look different, and yes, the 90s to 2018 would be like a massive time jump. Yes, she does look a bit different, but she doesn't look 30 years different. It's just a bit weird. I still think that scene is fake, but like I said, there is a lot of Avengers Endgame set up during this movie, because obviously during that whole scene we get the Thanos music that used to play when he was terrorizing different universes. So it is a pretty solid movie. There's a lot of Project Pegasus stuff, and I think something that has at least triggered a lot of people is the Avengers Initiative. because essentially that is what made Nick Fury go and look for everything else. And essentially what happens is right at the end of the movie, Nick Fury is putting together a new initiative for S.H.I.E.L.D. and it's dubbed as the Protector Initiative. But when he looks at a picture of Carol Danvers boarding her Air Force jet, I think it's called, he notices her sign is called Avenger. So the nickname inspired from Fury to change the name to Avengers Initiative has a better ring to it. But a lot of people are feeling like they've retconned it to make her an important part of the kind of Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I don't really think that makes any difference. So essentially, without Captain Marvel, there would be no Avengers name, and it's just a name. But I can see these like SJW channels. There's a lot of them on YouTube, really going hard at that one. But it's realistically just a name, and it's not even like Captain Marvel's fault. If anyone, blame Fury. But essentially, they're the main Easter eggs of the movie, and that's essentially the main plot points, so to speak. Goose the Cat is the MVP for me. Annette Bennett's character is pretty solid. Ben Mendelsohn's character, really good. I don't think we're going to be seeing the Skrulls anytime soon, unless there's some stowaway Skrulls that are secret. So that's pretty much the majority of the movie. They could have executed some parts better, but I do understand it was made by essentially some rookies in this kind of scale of a movie. It was only a $150 million budget for filming, and I presume that they probably have the same budget for marketing the movie. So I can understand why a lot of people were triggered, because this movie didn't really sell itself from the trailers. I mean, I don't know what was going on with the Marvel marketing for this movie, but the trailers have no correlation to how good the movie is. I mean, like, people were moaning about no smiling emotions, but she literally goes through every kind of emotion in this movie at some point, but she's kind of got amnesia through most of it, and it's flashing back and forth, which is quite a popular thing to do on TV shows. You don't really see it as much on movies because you haven't really got much time to explain why, but I felt like it flowed really nice. I got a lot of negative comments about saying that Marvel Disney paid me to give it a good review. I mean, I only gave it a 7.5 to 7, so that's really average. Like I said, to me, it's better than Iron Man 1, it's better than Thor, but no, I'm far from like a Captain Marvel fanboy. I do think she executed the role well, obviously with more character development, obviously coming in Avengers EndGame, then I think a lot more people will start to actually like her as a character. Like, my opinion doesn't have anything to do with what she has and hasn't said in the media. I mean, most of these people are taking it far out of proportion. She hates white males, etc. That's not really what she said, but you shouldn't really judge going to see a movie on what she said in real life in an interview, and it's taken out of context. But I really like the movie, so like always, guys, let me know what you do think down below. Did you hate the movie? Did you like the movie? But most importantly, did you see the movie? If you see the movie, you can have an opinion. If you haven't seen it, then I don't understand why like people are trying to review a bomb. I mean, I looked at IMDb yesterday and it had like a 5. I think that's a bit out. It's a bit unfair, to be honest. It's not a 5. It's like a 6 or a 7. Like I said, it's not amazing. It's like a middle tier movie, so to speak. Like, it's a movie that it is rewatchable. There is a lot of rewatchable value in the sense of the Easter eggs, and Goose the Cat's amazing, and when she goes binary, it's insane to see. I watched it in IMAX, so I can't comment if it was better in 3D, but IMAX is fairly decent, so I've got no issues with like the there was a couple of bit where the kind of CGI was off a tiny bit, but it's not a very high budget movie. The people making the movie don't have a massive bunch of experience with this, and I think the tribute to Stan Lee was very fitting, and it was amazing. Like his cameo role, pretty good. Not my favorite cameo role from him. I think my favorite cameo role will be the one in Spider-Man Far From Home, if it is what I actually think it is. So like always, guys, if I did miss any Easter eggs, there is a lot more. Let me know down below, and we can have a conversation in the comment section. And if you want to enter them competitions like I listed at the start of the video, all you got to do is subscribe to the channel and let me know down below. What is your favorite part of this movie? Who's your favorite villain? Who's your favorite superhero? Is Captain Marvel now your favorite superhero? Because by the time this video goes live, it will be out in Europe, UK, and most other places. So I'd love to know what you actually think about Captain Marvel. I'm not on about the actor, I'm on about the character in the movie. Do you think it worked? Do you think it didn't work? Just let's have a conversation down below, guys. So like always, please like, subscribe, and comment if you've made it this far in the video. Hashtag Team Warstu, and I will catch you in another video very soon. Catch ya later.